don't wanna change my name. I got nothing to be ashamed of. Got no secrets from you. I came in the world this way, and I'm going out the same. Gonna live my life and die as a Jew. As a Jew, as a Jew. I got nothing to apologize to you. I'm a son of Abraham. I believe in the promised land. And shouldn't you, shouldn't you, shouldn't you? Noah built the ark. Moses went up on Mount Sinai. Daniel made it through the lion's den. With a little faith in God, they all made it through their troubles, 'cause a little faith in God will always win. And it's true, and it's true. I got nothing to apologize to you. I'm a son of Abraham. I believe in the promised land. And shouldn't you, shouldn't you, shouldn't you? I don't want to change my name. I got nothing to be ashamed of. Got no secrets from you. I came in the world this way, and I'm going out the same. Gonna live my life and die as a Jew. As a Jew, as a Jew. I got nothing to apologize to you. I'm a son of Abraham. I believe in the promised land. And shouldn't you, shouldn't you, shouldn't you? Thank you.
Tapestry of ages, history unfolds. One people, the unlikeliest of stories ever told. Tiniest of nations, casting light into the dark. Empires have risen, empires they fall. They wield their might against us, but we move on through it all. A lighthouse in the storm, a candle in the night. Through the ages, through the years, through the pain and through the tears, we'll persevere, we'll carry on. I'm Israel at so tonight we scream into the shadows. So tonight we keep this flame alive. In this fight we have us and we have hope. Hear us now, we say Am Yisrael Chai. We say Am Yisrael Chai. Every heart an ember, every soul a flame. Trying to extinguish it has always been the same. On and on it goes, but the fire only grows. Through the ages, through the years, through the pain and through the tears, we'll persevere, we'll carry on. Am Yisrael Adayin Kamen. So tonight we scream into the shadows. So tonight we keep this flame alive. In this fight we have us and we have hope. Hear us now, we say Am Yisrael Chai. We will make it through this night. Am Yisrael Chai. Through the ages, through the years, through the pain and through the tears, we'll persevere, we'll carry on.
Please welcome back
Am
to the
Yisrael
stage
Chai
the Maccabees.
So tonight we scream into the shadows. So tonight we keep this flame alive. In this fight we have us and we have hope. Hear us now, we say Am Yisrael Chai. So tonight we scream into the shadows. So tonight we keep this flame alive.
Hi. Happy Hanukkah.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say hi to you, Mark, and hi to Ruth. And you got my message in chat, right? Both of you, I sent you a chat message. So we are making one change. Debra is going after Sheryl. And so that'll just move all the other presenters down one slot. Rena Katz was sick, and so she had to drop out. So both of you should just be aware of that. And I'll hint and make you aware of what's going on. And Rosa, I'm going to make you co-host right now, so you'll be able to admit, and you should be able to now have co-host rights. Okay, so we'll go back to music.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, good everyone, and welcome to the Jewish Culture and Holocaust Remembrance Group live Zoom today. I am so excited to have all of you with us. My name is Jeffrey Geisner. I founded the group. And boy, I've been wanting to do a program like this for a long, long time. Unfortunately, I didn't expect to have a war in Israel to drive it to fruition. I'm so delighted to have all of my friends who are contributing today to the program, who I got a hold of just minutes after the October 7th, and everyone agreed in an instant to put this program together. Thank you all for coming. I have done something different on screen, so if you are with us and you are not on screen with your video, you will not be seen on the tiles. So that's why you no longer will see black tiles, because I get nutso when I see a bunch of black tiles. So if you want to be seen, just go on camera and you will easily be seen. So hello, Zola, how are you doing? I'm glad to see you upright. And Zola's coming in from South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa. So she's probably one of the farthest with us. So I wanted to let you know, we're going to do a little tech check. We have a very intimate audience crowd today, just about what I expected. This gives us all the time that we want to have not only the actual presenters do their presentations, but also take questions from the audience and keep things moving. I'm going to be the moderator and timekeeper. And if you see my finger up like this, people who are presenting, please remember that that's the signal to, and Jackie says no. So, you know, she's always going to be there to say no to me, so okay. And so if you get bounced out of the Zoom, all you need to do is click on the link, and Rosa, who, please wave your hand, Rosa will, our co-host, will admit you. Rosa is also
Hi.
from Malta, And we're delighted to have, and I'm personally delighted to have Rosa's help and as the steering of the ship here, so I don't have to do everything myself, which is great. And if you want to raise your hand and ask a question after each presentation, just use your reactions button here, like you'll see me. I'll raise my hand and you all of a sudden see up here, I have a hand raised. It gives us a chance to easily see you. You will come right to the top of the screen and we can find you as opposed to going over. And if we have some stragglers going to be coming in, this could move to 2 screens, which makes it harder on Rosa and myself. So please just try to use your hand there. I also want to, I'm excited to, I always save a feature and a surprise for every one of these. And I'm thrilled to use this time right now to announce January 10th, the next International Film Festival for the Jewish Culture and Holocaust Remembrance Group. And that is called the We Are the Tree of Life. It is Jackie Gmach's project that she's been working on for like 3 years. So I'm going to share my screen now and give everyone a little treat of the trailer. I hope all of you will schedule yourself. It's online and it's already, you can already reserve your space. It will sell out from a standpoint of Zoom seats, I am sure. So let's go and do that.
In those days, music notes were silent.
On this day, the music will be heard.
There is a place that is marked in the music that I've never seen in music before, tumultuoso.
Enorme dose di adrenalina con i quali si può sopravvivere a situazioni di disagio, situazioni tragiche, penose.
But from her, we can kind of take her story and use it as a source of strength.
And we remember the Shoah, so it will never happen again to you.
In those days, drawings were hidden and invisible.
On this day, they will be seen.
Helga's drawings are known throughout the world and are documented in the book, Draw What You See.
We must tell the story of Friedel Dicker Brandeis and the art of the children of Terezin.
On these days, literature was voiceless.
On this day, life stories, words, and poetry will be heard.
The very last butterflies don't live in here, in the ghetto.
Carry on, my sweet survivor. Carry on, my lonely friend.
I'm thinking of the richness of the interviews you've done at the USC Sheryl Foundation and how you have captured experiences from multiple genocides and how that might inform our thinking about a community building, we are the tree of life kind of effort.
The Holocaust survivors themselves have had the final word of their own story. That to me is an amazing act of both resilience, I'm going to keep living and I'm going to tell my story, and resistance, I have the final word on this. We collectively have the final word on this.
You and me, we are the tree of life.
Well, and that is going to be January 10th at 12 o'clock Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time, and check your local time. And we're excited to preview the We Are the Tree of Life, Jackie's project. And it's about an hour and a half if I have the right timing. So we will show the film in its entirety online and stream it. And that'll be January 10th. We also have 2 other events in January 17th. You can mark your calendar for another support group Havurah event. And then our Zoom on Sunday will be on Sunday, January 28th at 1 o'clock. So we have a full calendar in January as we all come back from the holidays. So we're very excited. And on that note, I'm going to introduce our first presenter, and that is Sheryl, Rabbi Dr. Sheryl Kamen. And I'm going to pin you. Here we go. There you are. And why don't you make an introduction for yourself and your presentation, and then you take it from here.
Well, I think people already know me from last time, and I'm not so important that I need an introduction. I would like to start because I have 10 minutes and I took that very seriously. So I'm going to begin if it's okay with you guys. Okay. First, I want to just tell you, I'm speaking briefly about dancing, and then we're going to try and actually dance. I broke my toe last month, so I couldn't prepare a dance. And my computer gets a little glitchy with movement. So I have two wonderful friends, dancing companions here today, Linda and Marilyn. And Marilyn will play a video at the end from our dance teacher, Liz Onia, who was kind enough to offer it to us. And so I've chosen a special song to do for us to do together. First, I want to tell you that our patriarchs, matriarchs, and sages, who were all very wise, danced. They danced in good times and dark times. Some are very well known, like David, who danced before God as they moved the Aron Kodesh to Jerusalem. And then there was Miriam and the women who danced when they crossed the Red Sea. And there are also sages who danced regularly, like the Baal Shem Tov, Baal HaSulam, the Rabash, and there's even evidence that Rabbi Akiva and Maimonides danced. Actually, many of our sages and great rabbis were known to dance in both good times and bad. During hard times, they danced to regain joyfulness and hope. In ancient Jerusalem, there were the dancing maidens, and Hasidim are known to dance as an expression of joy, gratitude, and as a method of purification and to unify the community. And on October 7th, in many parts of the world, and here in the United States, due to our lagging time zone, as horrors were being committed against our people, many of us, including myself, were dancing with the Torah for Simchat Torah. Like many, the people of our synagogue and I were unaware of what was unfolding in Israel, but there were those who found out in real time and were challenged to dance with joy with the Torah, a most incongruous moment. And a moment that changed our history, our lives, our epigenome, and our brains. So, especially, by the way, this presents a lot of challenges that are very painful to people with vulnerable brains. And many of us, Jews, have a lot of vulnerabilities in this area. So let's talk about the brain just for a minute or a few minutes, and why dancing is such a wonderful choice. For time's sake, it will have to suffice to say, that the art of dancing in particular involves numerous regions of the brain and activates specific regions, which are associated with, of course, movement, proprioception, sensing where we are in space, visual spatial planning, musical perception and integration, social interactions, and much more. Dancing enhances neural synchrony in brain regions supporting 7 neurobehavioral areas. It also increases balance by helping to heal the vestibular apparatus. I do want to speak about one special area in the brain called the precuneus, located in the parietal lobe. This special little region is involved in a variety of complex functions, which include, and here's the mother lode of pertinent information, recollection and memory, integration of information relating to perception of the environment, cue reactivity, mental imagery, episodic memory retrieval, and affective responses to pain. Everything I just mentioned is involved in trauma, both acute and post-traumatic. The precuneus is profoundly involved in the organization and retrieval of traumatic memories. It's critical in reordering traumatic memories so they're less chaotic and more in our control. It works with other regions of the brain, but I bring up this region as a particularly good example of why dancing can help mitigate the trauma response. The precuneus is highly active during the act of dance. The more it's used in this way, rather than trauma strategies, the more it returns to its optimal state, just like the rest of the brain, and the more it and the brain quickly reorder traumatic memories, allowing us to regain control rather than being hijacked by them. Also, dancing releases lots of great neurotransmitters, especially dopamine and endorphins, the feel-good chemicals, and it reduces cortisol, so our stress levels go down. People dealing with depression or anxiety are greatly benefited by dancing for these reasons. Dancing is good for the heart and good for the brain. It's being used successfully for people with Parkinson's, many of whom have been quoted as saying, "I can hardly walk, but I can dance." Recently, it was discovered that Holocaust survivors and possibly their descendants have an increased risk of dementia. But another series of studies showed that regular dancing reduces the risk of dementia by a whopping 76%. Dancing activates many areas of the brain in very positive ways. So, without further ado, for those who can and are willing, please, can we get up and dance? Is anybody willing to dance with me? Please say yes, and please dance. Hang on, Marilyn, hang tight. I have to set up a different screen. Are you all just gonna let me dance by myself? I can't hear anybody.
Rosa's getting up.
All right. I know my friends are getting up. I hope others will get up and join us.
Come on, Ruth.
Come on, guys.
You have to set an example
It's
here.
really
Come on,
simple.
Ruth.
This is really simple stuff. Real simple. It's a little, oh, good. Mark's doing excellent. Okay. All right. Are you guys ready? Okay, Marilyn. Whenever you're ready. What?
Candelitas, dos candelitas, tres candelitas, cuatro candelitas, cinco candelitas, seis candelitas, siete candelitas, ocho candelas para mí. Every year, in each window on the street, we know that Hanukkah is here. Yeah. Una candelita, dos candelitas, tres candelitas, cuatro candelitas, cinco candelitas, seis candelitas, siete candelitas, ocho candelas para mí.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you so much. So thank you guys for dancing. I saw a bunch of people dancing. That's awesome. I hope you liked it. If there's time later, there's another one queued up just for fun, but we don't have to do it. And that's pretty much it. I hope you guys will consider dancing as a way of relieving anxiety, depression, and trauma symptoms. And Jeffrey?
Yes, I'm taking the mic back, and I got to tell you, that was joyful, absolutely joyful. And it really, it says that you can do a lot of things with Zoom. You just don't have to sit here. So that is just awesome. And for someone who's always looking for new ways, I think you've just stimulated, I could do a program like this all the way through. So this is terrific stuff. I also want to, Sheryl won't blow her own horn, but she's a rabbi and also a neuroscientist, a doctorate in neuroscience. So she has serious cred factor when she talks about the brain and how the brain can help coping with trauma. So thank you so much. We're also going to be now going over to, first of all, I want to go to the audience. Is there any questions for Sheryl and in that respect before we move on? If you have questions for Sheryl, just hit your reactions button. We're happy to take a question from you. But we're going to ask, and if you want to leave any questions in the chat later on, we go and move on. Okay, Eva, go ahead.
Ruth and Jackie, I think both had their physical hands up, but I don't know who else. Sorry.
All right, well, then we'll take one at a time. I see Eva's hand is raised. We'll go to you first, Eva. So unmute yourself and ask your question.
See the hand.
Yes, thank you. This was wonderful, Sheryl. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you liked it.
It brought smile and joy to me, which I haven't felt for the past few weeks. So thank you. You said that the Holocaust survivors and the children of the survivors are more prone to dementia. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I can. I said Holocaust survivor. It was discovered recently. I can find the study for you. If you need me to, I can send it to you later. But yes, that Holocaust, absolutely. That Holocaust survivors, and they don't know yet, possibly their descendants, because there's an assumption that the descendants may also be at risk due to the change, actually the brain and the epigenetic changes that occur and are passed down. So I will send you the study. If you get me your email address, I'll send it to you.
Thank you so much. Should I put it in the chat for you?
Sure. Yeah. I'm flush with studies, so I have too many of them. So anybody who wants a study, you got it.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Jackie.
Sheryl?
Yes, I wonder, thank you, first of all. It's so beautiful. And so when we are in a kind of trauma today, to try to express something different. But when you do select your dance, is it in relation to the level of the trauma or the age of the person, or how do you select this dance? That's probably my question.
You asked. I was hoping somebody would ask that question, actually. The great thing about dance is that it can literally be anything, and they actually studied a bunch of different kinds. It can be any kind of dance. You can literally be just swaying, and it's still doing the same magic in the brain. And as far as what you personally select, I mean, that would be what you are physically capable of. By the way, they did some work with paraplegics, oddly enough. You would think a paraplegic can't dance, but they actually did some dance work and had them work with their core to music. And guess what? It activated the same parts of the brain. It was amazing. So you can do any kind of dance, whatever you're drawn to.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And did I miss anybody else?
I'd like to say something just without having studied it. My husband's family all survived the traumas that they went through in Shanghai. And when we met, as I wrote in my book, I met him at a dance, and we danced weekly till he died of dementia, with the complications of dementia, and his whole family had that problem, by the way.
Sorry.
But dancing was the center of our life for many years. We didn't study about it, but that's what they did. and he was always looking for live music somewhere where somebody was dancing, didn't matter what it was. So even without studying, they seemed innately to know that that was one of the ways to keep going.
Yeah.
And thank you for your study.
Thank you.
I had a question was.
I'm sorry that you had to go through that, and I'm sorry he died that way. It's a horrible way to die.
Well, he didn't know that he was going and he wasn't going to get better. And I was very lucky he was still functioning and just stopped breathing one day. So if you have to go, that's the way to do it, I think. Anyway, the thing is that dancing has never been brought up before. There have been all kinds of things. And I wanted to ask you what brought you to that in the first place?
To dancing or to study
or to connect it to alleviating trauma?
Yeah, I have always danced since I was a child. I've danced in some form, so I just love dancing, and I'm just drawn to it. And during the pandemic, actually, this lovely woman Liz opened this thing for I call it our old lady dance class. And so a bunch of us who had, we were like sort of freaking out during the pandemic because what are we going to do? We can't go to the gym, we can't go out, we can't do, And so she did this for us, and it really helped us through. It was like a miracle. It was like a drug for us. It was wonderful, and we made fantastic friends. That's the great thing about dance. I mean, there's a social aspect, so you're always going to make friends, even if it's online. It's wonderful.
Well, I'm so glad that the pandemic had some, not a lot, but some good results. None of us really knew about Zoom that much before, and welcome everybody from all over the world, and it's like a little miracle right there. So anyway, thank you, Sheryl.
Thank you. Thank you guys who danced and who didn't.
Right. And
I sat in my chair.
I'm going to move on to invite Debra to join us. And Debra is going to be speaking about the wellness of sculpting. And also Debra is a trauma psychologist. So she is well aware, just like Rabbi is, about this whole topic. So she'll add her point of view, I'm sure. So take it away, and I'm going to run, when you're ready, I'll run your little brief slide deck for you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll let you know when I'm ready for that. Hello, everybody. Well, we have found over the past 25, 30 years through research and clinical work with people that using the body and various body modalities, including expressive or visual arts that use some part of the body, such as sculpture uses the hands and the connection from the right brain creative aspects of the brain through to the hands, that these really help with stress, with all kinds of trauma, in a way that bypasses our usual defenses. So it's often some form of mind-body activity is often used as a complement to psychotherapy for trauma in many quarters these days. And I find in my clinical practice, encouraging patients either to have an artistic channel or yoga, other forms like Tai Chi, some integration of body activity that is in some form of focused and ideally relaxed discipline is another important part of the healing. And we know it has certain impacts on parts of the brain that are involved in trauma, like the radar, the kind of heightened radar of a part of the brain called the amygdala that's involved in any kind of trauma reaction. Now, in my particular case, I didn't seek out sculpture or visual arts because of trauma, even though I am a second generation daughter of a Holocaust survivor. In my case, I've been involved with various sorts of visual arts my whole life, loved it. It's always been a hobby of mine, and I've made my way through photography. And then during the pandemic and a little bit before, I got involved in collage and mixed media. And then there was this class at what was then the University of Judaism, is now the AJU in Bel Air on Mulholland. There was a class online that I took that had to do with visiting Israeli artists' galleries remotely. That was fantastic during the pandemic remotely. And then that ended as things opened up. But I had become aware that there's this whole extension part of the AJU extension courses in the visual arts. And so I had actually, the sculpture part came when I had visited, one of my daughters was doing semester abroad in Florence. And when I visited her, we happened to take a clay sculpture class in Florence. And then I came back and I was all jazzed up about sculpture. I hadn't really done it. And I had gotten on the AJU's mailing list, and here comes an announcement of a stone sculpture class that apparently has been held for years, where you use power drills and hammer and chisel. So I got involved, and it's probably almost my third year. It is hard on the body. You actually burn a lot of calories besides having fun. I'm still very much a beginner. And there's a wonderful teacher who's a very seasoned sculptor, Michael Tyne. And he teaches these classes. I think it's like 8 weeks at a time series, and then they repeat after a hiatus. So both of my projects are beginner. And they take weeks and weeks to do, even though we meet for 2.5 hours. This is very methodical. You start with a block, like a rectangle or a square of stone. So my first one is this hand. This was the first one I did. I don't know what the best angle to show is. Anyway. And mind you, I am a beginner, so they're not going to look like, masterpieces. And then for the past 3 semesters, I took on way too expensive, too big a project for my next project, a little bit of an overachiever here, but you'll see it's at a very beginning level in terms of the complexity. I'm an Aquarius, and I love water and relate very much to water bearers, love any body of water. So this started out as a medieval water-bearing maiden, and there was a little miscommunication when the teacher was helping me. She used to have, at the very beginning, I have a clay model I made as a kind of study before doing her. She was going to have this kind of medieval sort of veil, or not veil, but, peasant, like a peasant head covering. And there was a miscommunication, and he accidentally was helping me with something where it got rid of that. So I had to change it. She's not meant to look like a Madonna, but I had to kind of improvise to deal with how she no longer had the part that was here, that was her peasant hair covering. So anyway, this, you can show the other one to show the 3D, Jeffrey, because it shows from the side. Yeah, the second shows her from the side. Yeah. So, believe it or not, this probably took, even though you can see it's very beginning level compared to what an advanced person might do, it took, oh my gosh, I think it's at least 3 semesters. So like 24 weeks of 2.5 to 3 hour sessions per week. Because you start out, it was a block of marble, a rectangle, and you use drills, you use hammer and chisel. I never would have imagined how many different tools can be attached to these pneumatic drills, sizes, shapes, textures, and so on. There's a variety. It's kind of fascinating to me. And there's one man who's really advanced in the class, Fred Hecht. Perhaps some of you know him. And he's been doing this for years, and he exhibits all over the world. He sells his pieces for $1,000. So the class is at all different levels. And he brings these tools. He's probably got, I would say, 200 different pieces of different sizes that go on the drills. And he loans them to people in the class to use to make all these different indentations to shape it and so on. And it's a wonderful experience. Like if I'm stressed, I often don't feel like going, but I'll push myself to go because it's at night. I will have seen patients all day and if I'm stressed anyway, I'll be tired, etc. But I push myself to go because fortunately I just live 8 minutes away. And I always get really into it, really focused, and using your hands like that. It's just kind of amazing what you end up creating. And it's interesting because it's a subtractive process. You start with this big rectangular square, right angles, and you're taking away, which is, it's kind of, you have to learn about negative space, as they call it, And that's kind of a fascinating process too, that something arises as you're taking away. So I've really enjoyed it. It is a little hard on the body. I may actually switch to clay sculpture after I finish this project in a couple weeks. But I would recommend any way of using your hands and translating creative ideas through your hands is another option to look at in terms of stress management, trauma, etc. So I think that's pretty much what I had to share.
It's terrific. Any questions for Debra? And Debra, unfortunately, has to leave us at not sure what time, but
probably 10:15.
When you see Debra disappear, she had to go for another prior thing. So, okay, I don't see any questions for you, Debra. So we're going to continue to move forward, and we're going to now reach out to Mark. Mark takes the presentation mic and presents his story about writing and speaking and educating.
I should have said, I did want to say thank you because I thought the hands and the Madonna were very cool, and I especially for a newbie. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, thank you. And I call her a water bearer. I was just apologizing that she looks like a Madonna, and some of the things, and she wasn't meant to, and some of the things I had to do to cover up for the loss of the peasant hairpiece ended up making her look like a Madonna by accident.
Well, we have Mark, and I should obviously mention Mark has been a long advocate and supporter for our group, and he is has several recognitions. He was the New York Teacher of the Year, and he also has written a bunch of children's books, and he has written a award-winning trilogy, which probably, I don't want to steal his thunder, but maybe it's in this presentation. So go ahead, Mark.
You can steal my thunder anytime you want, Jeffrey. Thank you very much for including me in this very important program. I hope my story helps others. My concern is mainly how trauma affects children. And so I'm going to share my story as an example, and then I'll talk a little bit about children. Okay. My parents rarely spoke about what they suffered during the Holocaust. And what I did know terrified me. I thought the Lodz ghetto they spoke of was built around the roofs Anatevka, a village where Jews lived for generations. I had absolutely no idea it was constructed by the Nazis as a holding tank for Jews with purpose unknown. My entire past was a mystery. This is the only photograph I have of any of my grandparents. It's on the back of a postcard, which is also really another mystery for me. Mom's sister, Minya, was also on a postcard. And what I could never understand was anyone would want to hurt or murder a child like this. Who was she? I have no idea. Who could hurt a child? That I don't understand. Okay. This is a photograph of my mother as a little girl. It's the only one I have. When you look at her face, I really wonder if she saw the future. And I worry how events today are affecting our children, which is really one of my main concerns and why I'm speaking today. Did she know what was going to happen? I was born in Germany 2 years after my parents' liberation. I want you to notice how thin my parents still were 2 years later. I'm not sure, but I believe this is where we lived as displaced persons until we emigrated to America in 1947. My parents married to escape Europe. And after a stormy 20 years, Mom divorced my father. I really didn't understand a lot about them. For example, with my mother and her friends, why they kept aluminum foil in their purses and stole food. Or why she warned me that if I didn't eat the last kuskala, the tiny crumb of bread left on my plate, the children of Europe would starve to death. That still echoes today. Talk about trauma. I had nightmares, terrible nightmares. And without grandparents and family, I really had no one to talk to. So I turned to writing. This is one of the poems I wrote as a teenager, The Blonde Angel. The sight of an angel we long to see. Gossamer wings, gold, shimmery, promise hope and light where no hope can be. Guardian angels glowing bright, are protectors day and night. Why do I see your hollow eyes stare, black uniformed nightmare? My parents, grandparents saw an angel. They stood on endless lines with faceless others, brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, naked, head shaved, holding their breath, being judged by the angel of death. Starched uniform, no silvery gown, blonde hair, no sparkling crown. Demon smile, dripping guile, he held the key to life, finger deadly as a knife, points in air. You've won, door one, to nothingness, nowhere. Grandparents sent to the door, disappear, see no more. Sent to unmarked graves, dad, mom, made angels slaves. He sends them all to his darkest pits. In this hell he rules, Auschwitz. I dream of seeing angels in my nightmares. As a teacher, I wrote to help my students. The pen became a magic wand. It was a way to deal with my traumas, a way to escape from the realities that I was facing. As a teacher, I wrote to help my students, and I created fictional monsters, almost forgetting about the real monsters in my past. Then Mom made a tape for the Shoah Foundation. One sentence caught my attention and inspired me to enter a story contest. I was very proud the warehouse won until I read a judge's comment. This is an amazing work of fiction. For 2 years, I was ashamed to show Mom my story. Finally, I gave it to her in the last hour of a visit to Miami. When we got home, there was a phone message for me. Moxila, she said, and that's what she called me, Little Max. I love your story, but I wish you asked me for the truth. A month later, I was ready to interview her when my stepfather called. Your mom is in the hospital. Linda, my wife, and I raced 4 hours to Miami. Mom passed 10 minutes before we got there. I held Mom's hand and I cried. I lost my mother and her story. The one line that she said was, she told of working in a warehouse and being taught to run her hands over clothing to find valuables. Before she died, Mom gave me a monster of a book, The Chronicle of the Lodz Ghetto. These were anonymous entries the writers risked their lives to record. For the first time, I understood how the Nazis tightened the noose on hundreds of thousands of men, women, children, and babies in the ghetto. And I discovered a mystery that still haunts me. Chaim Rumkowski, with a 5th grade education, was appointed by the Germans to be the ghetto chairperson. He enforced German orders and crushed opposition. Many still brand him a collaborator, the devil. I had to learn the truth. My grandchildren had to know what I didn't know, even if it meant returning to hell and facing my monsters. I felt so guilty not knowing our history. What would have been my fate if I was born 2 or 3 years earlier? From The Devil's Bookkeepers 2, September 14th, 1942. A crowd gathers in the square to hear Chairman Rumkowski announce much anticipated, hopeful news. The voice on the microphone cracked with emotion. In my old age, I must stretch out my hands and beg, brothers and sisters, give them to me. Fathers and mothers, give me your children. I glanced around me, not believing. Many others were staring up at our leader in shock. I heard anguish crying, angry protests, dreadful weeping. It wasn't real. I hadn't heard correctly. Why wasn't I crying? Because I didn't believe it. It was a dream, a nightmare. Wake up, wake up. I had to know when the entrapped Jews knew their final destination. When did Rumkowski know? Did he escape their fate? Shocked by what I learned from the Chronicle and from further research, I doubted I had the ability to share the story, but I had to try, at least for my family. It was as if my lost relatives were pushing me to write. I insisted on using mom's sister's beautiful face for the cover. There is no tombstone. There is no gravesite. Mom was my role model for Miriam, my young heroine. I finally began to understand her overwhelming drive for survival and her hunger. I molded my anti-hero on my father. He was intelligent, brave, but volatile. Writing helped me come to terms with our difficult relationship, a major trauma in my life. After I finished book 2, I was emotionally drained, but readers asked me if any of my characters survived. I wanted to leave them with hope. Did any survive? I'm not going to tell you. The Devil's Bookkeepers won awards, and I love the emotional reviews it gets. But most importantly, people are learning about the Lodz Ghetto, and I am finally able to share my trauma and how I help myself with others. I love writing because I can express my thoughts and emotions in ways limited only by my imagination. It is a magic wand that can help us cope with our monsters. We can help our children tame their monsters. We can battle our demons without others judging us. It's private unless we decide to share it, which, by the way, took me a long time to do. A thought, a poem, a few sentences can start the healing process. We can write about things and get our children to write about things they care about and those they hate. Writing can let the crazy out in all of us in a safe and productive way. What we are going through now has made us all a little bit crazy. We may begin with fictional monsters, most of our children do, and perhaps later build the strength to tackle the real ones. My best advice to help our kids is to write alongside with them. Show them writing is your adventure and your outlet too. Show them writing can make the world beautiful and that all dreams are possible. Writing has power. It can help us confront our fear. Broken glass. They shattered the glass, and so it starts. They attacked our past. They could not kill our hearts. They lit up the night with cries of hate, but could not extinguish the light of our faith. They tried to crush us under their heels, but we survived because of God's will. 1,000 synagogues they ruthlessly burned as mobs rampaged with hatred learned. Setting fire to our shops, beating Jews they might meet, a night of murder in the hate-darkened streets, a night heralding a longer night of fear, our cries falling on the world's deaf ears. The death camps opened their poisonous hands, and the hate flowed freely in many lands. November 9th, 1938, an explosion of unchecked hate. The Kristallnacht that began the long December, a night of rage we must remember. 6 million more stars soared into the sky, and still the flame of our faith would not die. The light of our beliefs we hold dear, our heritage from the past, even as once again we hear the frightening echoes of broken glass. You and your children have stories. Please, please, please preserve them. I truly regret losing mine. The Devil's Bookkeepers is now available on Amazon and Kindle and as audiobooks. Please contact me if I can ever be of help to any of you. Thank you, Jeff, and my friends here for helping me tame my monsters. Jeff, unmute yourself.
Can you stop your screen share, Mark?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, for those of you who are not on tiles, I want to just remind you that you're not being seen. So if you want to see yourself online, just get your camera on so we can see you. And we have more people in the program than are actually here with camera. So it's great to see more people coming on board. Boy, that is a very, very powerful presentation, and I wouldn't have thought anything less would come. So I'm glad that I didn't pop or throw out any kind of spoilers. So thank you, Mark. Is there any questions for Mark? We have budding writers all over our group. I don't know how many are here, but this is the time to ask some questions of Mark. If you have questions, just please raise your hand or go to the reactions button on your toolbar and raise your hand. So Jackie is the first, so go ahead, Jackie. Unmute yourself, Jackie, please. Jackie, unmute yourself.
Sorry. Thank you, Mark. I was saying congratulations on the success of your book and on your presentation. My question is, and I didn't read the book yet, is there the image of you and your trauma in your book? And if so, was that difficult to introduce it?
Never really shared my trauma before, Jackie. I've always kept it pretty much to myself because I was distracted by my role as a teacher. And my job was to share joy and not my own personal things. It's taken me all this time. Jeffrey knows, because we've talked before, that I've always felt great guilt, how little I knew. You know, and so that is not in the book, but I've been writing all my life. And all I can say is I feel like I'm preaching to the choir because all of you've expressed yourself in writing many, many times, and you know how powerful it is. And that's what I want our children to understand too. So I hope I answer your question.
Thank
and I
you.
hope you do read it. I'd love to know your opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mark?
Can't wait to read it. Such a powerful, moving presentation. Thank you so much, Mark.
Well, you made me dance, so I hope I made you.
You were great dancing, and I really appreciated that. And I will be reading your book. That was amazing. Really amazing.
I want you all to know that that dancing has been recorded, and hundreds will be streaming that recording. So Linda needs to see you, and you better be taking Linda, and that's Mark's wife, out for
I'm going to tell you, Jeffrey, I met my wife in a discotheque on Long Island. And when she was on 9/12, I found out she had breast cancer. And that was in 2001, right after 9/11. And she had 6 months of treatments. And what she wanted to do was join her mother down in Florida. And the first thing she did when we were looking at places to move was we danced in a town square, and I looked in her eyes and I said, "This is where you belong." So yes, dancing is very important to my life. Jeffrey, may I share one more poem, if I may? I wrote this on October 7th because this is the way I vent. October 7th, 2023, Shabbos, everyone asleep. Peaceful years fool us into complacency. The enemy waited, plotted years for this day, pretended to be changing while eyeing sleeping prey. Children in their beds, parents nearby, innocently unaware of danger in the night, of enemies smiling to take us by surprise, dreams of peace beguiling, hiding blood, lusting eyes. Everyone's asleep. The killers wait. It was my way of expressing my feelings and my frustration. So guys, get writing. And if your children are unable to talk, get them writing. Start with fiction, but you'll be amazed how much the fiction resembles what they're thinking about real events.
Okay, Rosie, you have your hands raised, so go ahead.
I have a question and a comment. The question is whether you've published any of your poetry and where can we get the book, if so?
I have not published my poetry. I've never considered myself a great poet, but in fact, to be very honest with you, I wasn't going to publish The Devil's Bookkeepers, but I gave it to a friend of mine who happened to be a staunch Catholic, a wonderful man who was an English professor. And 3 days later, my beta reader called me up and said, Mark, this is an amazing accomplishment. You have to publish this because the world has to know the story. But it took me about 3 years after that to publish it.
I would say the same about the poetry, from what you've shared so far. And my comment was, this really moved me because some of my ancestors, the ones who didn't migrate to Malta, I have the same questions, you know, the not knowing. And I think that is the worst thing. And also that I follow your account on Facebook, and whatever the delay that there was with your mother, I think that you more than make up for it now and keep at it, because we're going to need it, especially after the 7th, because we're going to need it to be able to heal and to rebuild and, you know, to cope with it all. Because right now I think we're all in, you know, in crisis mode. But afterwards we're going to need people like you who have had to dig their way through things. So thank you for that, and keep at it.
That's why I love this group. I have learned so much, and I just appreciate Jeffrey and everybody here so very, very much. Thank you.
And by the way, before we get to Debra, I wanted to say Zola is giving you big thumbs up in the chat, which I'm sure you're not seeing. So she's recommending that you also should publish your poem. So Debra, so good to see you. It's nice to see you. I learned about you through my sister Sheryl, who is close to Debra. So go ahead, Debra, ask your question.
Well, I have two comments. First to Sheryl. When I first moved to Israel in 1969, one of the things that really impressed me was 3 generations dancing on the roof of the cultural center. And the dance we were mostly doing was the hora. Now, Israeli dancing can be very complex, but it can also be extremely simple. This dance, the hora, which just kept going and going and going and going. And I'm wondering if there's a connection between that phenomenon and the fact that so many Israelis are in fact Holocaust survivors who were descended from. But in those days,
you should research that. I don't know. I do know that that we Jews and Israelis are the people who actually developed on the igulim, the circles dances, and that they're all echoes of spirituality, echoes of
right. And circle dances are also very indigenous connection. So thank you, Sheryl. And now for Mark, I really do, you know, as a teacher and as a child of, you know, I'm growing up in the shadow of the Holocaust. I'm wanting to give some of this healing energy to my grandchildren, but they are also, they have a you know, a reaction to it. They don't want to. It's, you know, why traumatize the next generation? It's sort of like I'm passing trauma. So my question is, what prompts do you use to work that inspire hope rather than trauma or re-traumatization? Because this is, we're sort of walking a thin line.
You know, I'm really glad you asked that question because one of the things I'm working on a new project, which is exactly that. How do we get our children to talk to us? And especially if the children have an oppositional view to ours. You know, we're seeing children. I have a grandson who is looking at colleges now. And it's a terrifying thing for me to realize that he may be setting foot into a college where, you know, children have a different point of view of what happened than we do. And so what I've been looking at is ways to breach that kind of wall that they've set up, and that we also, in a sense, have a wall. And one of the things I've seen is that there are different degrees of this oppositional point of view. And what I'm going to suggest to you, and what I'm trying to do as well, is I'm trying to listen very, very carefully for the cues of how they really feel and whether they really do have this opposite point of view of what I feel. Okay, I'm being a little bit tactful here because I don't really want to say, you know, that they're anti-Semitic, because there's all different ranges here.
Yeah.
Okay, and the problem I'm finding that is that once you use a label and you say someone is such and such, you can no longer breach that wall. So what I'm looking at is the different degrees of behavior we're seeing. And one of the things I'm seeing is avoidance and denial. And I'm looking at ways of breaking through that. So you're right. And the best thing I think that we can do is just really listen to them. And from personal experience, I can tell you that I have knowledge of children who aren't even listening to the news at all, and adults who aren't listening to the news because they are so unwilling to be traumatized by this whole situation. So
what prompt would you ask a child to
well, you know, one of the things,
to inspire their writing?
as I said, one of the things I would do is look at fiction. Okay, I would look at and you know, really the simplest thing I think is to say to someone, you know, how do you feel? You know, one of the things that I'm doing in my new presentation is working on brainstorming the emotions, because there's a whole range of emotions we feel. Right now, we feel fear, we feel confusion, we feel terrible sadness, hopelessness. Maybe some people feel hope. So there's a whole range of things. So the first thing I would do is brainstorm emotions. And I think that's what I would do. I don't think there is one answer here. That's the problem.
I want to add to another answer for you, Debra, and everyone. When I founded this group, one of my core reasons for wanting to do so was to create digital programming screens that our children and our millennial Gen Z groups were addicted to. I've come out of that technology world, and I realized that there was something missing. You haven't seen a program, and I've done now this is the 140th program. I'm very proud to mention that. But you haven't seen any in concentration camp scenes in any program. And I have tried really hard to always approach the programming from different lenses and always bring something different to the screen. And so sharing what I think is a growing valuable asset is the JCHR Media YouTube channel, and allow people to explore history on their own screens in a different way. And so that's a legacy that I'm trying to build. It'll stream forever, and it'll stream for our children. My son is the same, you know, getting him interested in his grandparents' Holocaust interest is virtually non-existent. But I'm hoping that at some point when he has children, that he will go and he'll have a legacy of programming And if I'm not here anymore, he'll be able to see me on screen. So I recommend, for you, Debra, is to record your thoughts. There's not only do you have to write them down, obviously you have to write them down, but you can record them. And it's very easy for you to go onto YouTube and add video to your own YouTube channel. And that will be there. It doesn't cost anything. And YouTube doesn't charge for it. And it'll be there for the rest of your lives. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Ruth. You're next up on the presentation screen. I'm so thrilled that you brought into the program Diane and Tamara. Your children are with us here on screen as well. So wave to mom. So that's terrific. And so go ahead, Ruth, you take it from here.
Well, the idea was to see, I think you said, to help people deal with trauma. And I think that we underestimate children. They're resilient. I was 5 years old when I first learned that people want to kill me. And I internalized that. I brought it with me to America, where I also experienced a lot of anti-Semitism, which is still here. And we just need to acknowledge it and admit to ourselves that, yes, it's out there and we're going to have to live with it. And it comes and goes and gets worse and better. And I've seen some of the worst of it in this country also. And it's very bad now. But there are other voices and we need to listen to them. There are people that really recognize the danger. I remember my mother being, after we got to America, she would sometimes be horrified at what was happening. And it was me at probably the ripe old age of 12 or 13 who kept telling her, Mom, the worst has already happened. And at this point, yes, it has. And so what else could they do to us that they haven't already done? And then she would start thinking about how things are better now than they were. So that was helpful. And music can take you away. And that was a very good segment. And I really appreciate that. We listen to all kinds of music and it can take you out into the country. It can take you into whole other worlds, just listening to it. And dancing, as I mentioned earlier, that's how my life with my first husband, Diana's father, began. We danced. And all of the people that we knew were Holocaust survivors. Our circle of friends was totally people that had survived either in Shanghai or from Germany or other places. And we went dancing a lot. It was almost like something that we needed to do. So yes, we need music and we need dancing. And I've discovered a 10-minute elder exercise that I've been doing. And those 10 minutes a day, everybody has 10 minutes somewhere. Sometimes a half an hour exercise is too much, but those 10 minutes include dancing. And I find that it's very helpful, especially when I get very depressed. And these times are depressing. They really are. And one advice I have for all of you, no matter what happens, and even when the weather is very bad, try to get outside, take a walk somewhere and look at the world out there, the trees and the flowers, and that can be very soothing. And then you can come back to whatever problems and worries that you have will seem a little bit lighter. There's no way to actually mitigate what we are going through at this point, but there are little moments where we can capture that we can feel better. Get outside. I wrote my first book was actually should have been my last one, and my last book was about my life, and I wanted to show you the cover. It's about my mother and me mostly, and how we survived. I was born in Vienna, and Austria was a little different than some of the other countries. In Austria, we were we were living in a democracy, and went to bed one night, and in the morning we woke up in a dictatorship where all Jews were no longer real people. When one day to the next, it was like living on another planet. And my life as a 5-year-old wasn't that different, but I can only imagine what my parents must have felt all of a sudden, not to be able to do anything. It was a lot like it was during the COVID now, where we had to be quarantined. We couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't go to restaurants or movies or even shopping at certain hours, or ride the streetcar. All of a sudden, we couldn't do anything. And I tried to tell a little bit about that in my book, and also to show that, although children do go through a lot, and it is hereditary, some of that trauma, and they may not want to hear about it, but it can be written about, and later maybe they'll read about it, and they'll connect to it. I wrote 2 other books because I've been listening to people's stories for many, many years. This one deals with a spy, goes all the way to Egypt, and where a young lady was kidnapped, and it really is a real story. This is a collection of people that helped save people, and it started out with this one woman that saved a lot of little boys that she found. She was living in Poland and was not Jewish, and she would find children running around or roaming around in the woods, and she'd bring them back. She was a housekeeper for the head of the Gestapo there, and she brought these children in and put them in the wood boxes right under these men's noses, and fed them and kept them warm, and then, well, she had to send them out again into the night. But later they had a reunion, so I know that there were quite a few people that she saved at the risk of her own life, and there were a lot of people like that. So I found a few stories and I put them together. And one last thing I want to mention is I have an aunt, Alice Kern, that survived Auschwitz as a 19-year-old. And for 30 years, she kept all these stories in her head. And then one day she said, "Ruth, I really need to write this down." And the thing that you mentioned about writing, it has a very soothing effect. Once you get it out of your head, you don't have to think about it anymore. And she told me that writing this down would just almost saved her life. So after 30 years, she didn't have to remember all the details. She had already told them to me and to other people and written them down herself, and collected them in a book. And I gave her the title, Tapestry of Hope. Is about a tapestry that disappeared that her mother was working on. And she always wanted to find it again. And one last thing about trauma. My aunt, who, like I said, survived Auschwitz, she and her mother and her aunt, her mother's sister, were taken off the train and separated. Her mother happened to be holding 2 children, her aunt's 2 children, with her hands because her aunt was feeling weak. And so my aunt and her aunt were taken away, and her mother was taken in another place because she had the children, and they never saw them again. And of course, they must have gone to a gas chamber. But my aunt told me that the rest of her life, whenever she got into a crowd or was anywhere outside or even walking down a street, she was always looking for her mother with the hope that possibly she would have survived, because she had no idea what happened to them. But just not knowing what happened to all of our relatives was the trauma. And a lot of people spent their lives looking for someone that they lost. So it does have a lifetime effect, whether we, want to forget it or not. So if I have any questions,
I have a question for you. And
yes.
I've also added Tamara and Diana to the screen. So I would love to hear from them about what makes your mom strong and special.
They may not think I'm strong and special.
Well,
I don't know.
on camera, so let's see what they say.
All right. Well, as she was talking, she has a glass half full, glass half empty kind of attitude, which to me was helpful and not helpful. She would show a positive side to stuff and then turn around and say, well, that's just the way it is. You got to do what you got to do, kind of thing. The things that she mentioned about like our aunt, we knew her as Lucy, and actually Alice is her name. And she actually told me stories that I guess she never told her kids. And it was a miracle that she had 4 daughters, because she happened to be one of Dr. Mengele's people. My cousins can't believe that she actually told me that. And I don't know why she told me that, because she did tell me stories that, and things that she wanted me to tell my cousins that she couldn't tell them. And it was like, just call them and tell them. No, I want you to tell them. I want you to tell them. So when Mom started writing these books and I started remembering the things that she talked about to me, and I look at myself as a second generation, which I started a second generation group, which has blossomed into about 2,000 people. And we had to change the name to Next Generation, because there were so many people that wanted to join that were affected by the Holocaust, whether they were Jewish or not. Amazing stories and speakers that are on our website. Next Generations group on WordPress. I'm a second generation of intergenerational trauma. And I didn't realize that I was until I started that group back in 2009. And I've only spoken a couple of times, one on my dad's story and one on my mom's story. But it's hard for me to speak because I still carry anger and emotion. So I know that that's okay when you are speaking, but getting over that part of it. And so that's why we have this group going with my cousin and I.
Hey, Tamara?
I look at her as a role model, because she actually stepped out of her boundaries and wrote books, and has boxes of when she was writing since she was about, 5 or 6 years old, Mom? Just pages and pages of daily stuff, which would be another book. We probably won't even publish that until later, like in another 200 years.
So Tamara, let me stop you for a second. Tamara, I want you
sure.
and then we'll move on. Do you have anything?
Oh my goodness. Do you have like a whole day?
Yeah, really.
No, you have to severely edit yourself.
I will. So your question was like, what makes her special? So strong. Yeah. So, I think from the beginning, if you read her book, her mother, who, she claims is the person who making the decisions that she made and the wit that she had helped her survive. And then I think just what, I'm shaking too, so this is hard. But so, the book is dedicated to her mom. And, when you come from that, I feel like that's what made me strong. But the other thing is definitely her she has grown over the years. She is strong because of she's so well read and continues to be open-minded. So open-minded. I mean, the things that she is just sharing today, I don't believe is something that she would have shared 40 years ago, you know. And some people stay the same in a way in their beliefs and are unwilling to get off of that, you know, the way that they believe things in the world. They will not change their mind. And what I have seen her do is take in information from all sides. You know, I was like, she's sitting there watching, you know, Fox News, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you watching Fox News? Well, she wants to know what all different people are thinking and know what is happening in the world, and not just have this narrow way of, you know, being fed information, but opening her mind to listening to other people. And but you know, her opinions are strong when they are, but however, that idea of strength for me is that having that open mind, having that heart and mind connection, which I think has grown for her over the years.
Okay.
And using her past to create a better future.
Okay, I want to thank you. I know I put you both on the spot without.
That's okay.
Without telling you that I was going to do this, and I will come back to you, Ruth, so that you can talk about your daughters too at the end of the program. So, so stay.
Jeffrey, I'm so sorry. I was notified a few minutes ago of a death in our family. I need to get on another call and deal with it. If you don't mind, I have to leave, and please forgive me. I will watch the rest. Okay. Thank you so very much. I'm so sorry, guys.
That's no problem.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to our friend here. Jackie is going to take the next presentation. And Jackie is a longtime friend and supporter of the group. And are you setting up your presentation, Jackie? That's what we're seeing. Okay. So we are going to see Jackie in a minute and Jackie's presentation. So Jackie, take it away. What do you need help with, Jackie? Jackie, can we hear you? Maybe you're on mute.
Here for me. Okay.
So go ahead. Okay.
My apology.
Just there you go. Hit
okay.
That. Voila.
Voila. Don't tell me that. Ah, no. It always works.
There you go.
Shoot.
There you go.
No. It's always like that. Shoot. Oh,
hit the triangle.
It's coming.
Don't rush. Don't be so nervous. Go ahead.
I'm always nervous.
Okay.
Jesus.
Hear my prayer in my need. You have always been there. He is young. He is afraid. Let him rest. Heaven bless.
I'm sorry. We did try it. It did work. Now it doesn't work. I'm totally stuck.
Okay, well, why don't you just
Okay.
talk to
Okay.
us
Hold on.
about-
Hold on. Let me. Okay, I'm going to not take the video, but I wanted to start with a moment in silence and dedicate what we are doing to our Israeli hostages and what's happening in Israel, in Gaza, and in the world. And I'm Israel High. Sorry for the technology. Okay, as you introduced me, Jeffrey. I am the founding director of We Are the Tree of Life. We Are the Tree of Life. It is a project which got into me just after the massacre of the Tree of Life synagogue. And after talking to my granddaughter, who designed the logo that I have selected, I started to develop a program where we have the concept of resurrecting the performing arts performed also by inmates in camps and in ghettos, by saying their resilience, their courage, their survival, even if they didn't survive, came from their talent and from their determination to take the arts as an element of power. And it took me to studying a little bit the yellow star. And the yellow star, as you can see on this slide, is a badge. You knew that. We know that. But it's at the same time a design. And my attention went very much into the Yugoslavia and the Z that we saw at the first year of the Ukrainian war. That means I am determined to work on combating anti-Semitism with arts. And why do we want to do that? Because I think that we talk about trauma, we talk about loss of motivation, of reactions due to circumstances of life, due to the Holocaust, due to the life of our loved ones and things like that. And I was wondering, can we fight it with art? Can we perform and develop a sense of unity and humanity that we have totally lost all over the world? That means for me, with this determination, we have the badge, we have the design. You can see on the slide how it's with a closeness to the calligraphy of Hebrew, and why that, and different in different countries. What I want to present to you is the concept of, if we can fight anti-Semitism, if we can reduce anti-Semitism, which is for around the world for thousands of years, maybe we can have a better world. And if I make a personal note here, I think that my first really trauma in my life, and I am 83, and I had difficult situation, is with what's happening in the world today, and I want to fight it. I presented to you here a caricature of the way the people who don't love us see us, as a rendering image in a simplified or exaggerated way, as you can read with me, define the hate existing. Is it on a political purpose? Is it entertainment? Or does it have an action really who gets us again to the world of hate, and hate being a word that I wanted to eliminate from my life, especially when I started to work on We Are the Tree of Life. And I think it's wrong. And I think we are beautiful. Don't you think that they are beautiful? You can all scream yes if you want. They are beauties. They are my grandchildren. This one is my daughter, but this is my grandchildren. I mean, we are beauties. And I want to present this aspect of my, I don't want to say creation, of the direction of the work that I want to do there. And I am sure many of you in this Zoom can help me. It's by presenting to you the life, the work, and the impact of two internationally known artists, Jewish artists. David Oller, who developed his work around the eyes of a witness, and Samuel Bach, who in a sense have developed his art in regard to hope. And you can see the self-portrait that they have basically using in their presentation to the world of their own story. You can see the intensity. When I look at David Oller here, I am sad. I'm sad. And I say, how do we get there? I am not a professional of trauma. I am an educator. I believe in relationship between one individual and the other one. The reason is I am a chemist. In a reaction, A gives you B, and B gives you A. And if you have a problem, because it doesn't work well, you find the catalyst to make this reaction work. And when I look at Samuel Bach, that I know pretty well, I can see a sadness, which makes me sad, which at the limit can take me in a traumatic life, but do I have really the sense of it, or do I have the right of it? To present to you David Oller, and this is also one of his self-portrait and his work done after he escaped. No, he didn't escape, sorry. He was liberated from Auschwitz. What's very important in David, I don't know if you see my cursor, is that he was a standard commando. And the next slide will tell us about it a little bit. He was Polish-born, painter, sculptor, explicit drawings. He was studied at the Warsaw Academy. He lived in Berlin, and finally married Juliette Ventura, who gave birth to a son, Alexander. He was drafted in the infantry after when the war broke out into the infantry regiment. If you feel that you see an interest, because for me, it's all that is at the level of reflections about combating anti-Semitism with arts, and reflection about how does that affect the individual. Many people will look at this next slide and say, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch it. And as you can see in the red, and I would appreciate, for me, I'm trying to give them more attention. I need you guys. I need your reflection. They were composed of prisoners, usually Jews, who were forced on threat of their own deaths to add with the disposal of gas chamber victims during the Holocaust. Is there something above trauma? I have invited, Jeffrey has invited a friend of mine, Dr. Joshua, who is a specialist and a film video therapist. And I'm sure he will give us hope, some feedback about that. Hope. This Samuel Bach was in the Vilna ghetto. We are going to read a little bit about him also. And he is bringing for me the images of the reality of how we have been sinfulness for ourselves as Jews and as Jewish community all over the world. the destruction of ourselves, and at the same time, the survival. And at the same time, the survival. We are here. I'm going to say that because I love to share. I think we survive all those extermination, and we are not being accepted because of our success, because of our resilience, because of our courage, and because of our success. If you look at the image of the tree, okay, you always have your own interpretation in terms of images, right? But for me is the Torah. The Torah, the book of the Torah is closed. The book of the Torah is open and goes all over the sky. The trees are damaged. The trees, we don't see their roots. The trees, and again, I don't know if you see my cursor, branches are broken. That means, is the tree going to survive? And I think that's the way Samuel Bach has brought his work. He survived the Holocaust. He immigrated to Israel. He was in Vilnius when occupied by the Germans. They were forced to move into the ghetto. They were saved by a Catholic nun, Maria Mikulska, who tried to help them. And they were deported to a forced labor camp, but took shelter again in the convent when they remained in hiding until the end of the war. Those two images and those two artwork, magistral, incredible artwork of Samuel Bach is where I wanted to spend a little bit of time. I'm sure you identify very fast under the bridge or the curve of the bridge, the rabbi and the image of this little kid that everybody have seen, and is at Yad Vashem, by the way. But next to him on the left, when he's rendering himself by raising his hand, you have a face of a similar kid with no definitions of traits, with no design, again, no art. Because this kid could be whoever, me, my granddaughter, somebody I didn't know, somebody at the Holocaust, somebody of today who is dying in Israel. Or for me, at the humanitarian level, anywhere. But you see, the structure is still unstable, but keeps together. This little stone could fall, but not falling. This could stone falling. And the one on the right shows you the same kid from the back, but he has a backpack. He has a backpack. Is he going to get killed? He has a backpack. He has a backpack because he's going to survive, even if he's dead, even if he's murdered. And where is he going? Toward the world of the identity of the Magen David. Yes, design, cartoons, caricatures are a way to reflect the vision of the designer, of the person of the painter. Arts can give us the strength to live. We need to write. Mark is right. We need to dance. Sheryl is right. We need to say music and to play music. Ruth is right. But if you take, for example, the story of Charlie Hebdo, I'm sure you remember that, where 12 staff members were killed. The shooting have been presented. Is there a way, and that's my reflection, is there a way as to excuse with the death of 12 people that the freedom of expression can be done for a caricature? I don't know. I don't know. But I will be working on that, and I would need your help. And I will need to know where my own trauma is going to be, my own depression. As I say, I am 83. I had problems like any of us in this Zoom room. being together. What is the impact? David O'Leary, just as I can say, he defined his work as ghostly witnessing face of the background. He lives next to my mother-in-law, and he did the portrait of David's mom, my mother-in-law, that I really adore, was an incredible woman. That means he brings the story of the Holocaust and he gives it to you and say, okay, deal with it. The impact of Samuel Bach is a little bit different. Even with a painting which has no Jewish identity, you have a pear cut in two, but we can eat the pear cut in two. We have un pichet. I don't know how to say un pichet, a jar, or how do you call that? Whatever, where the water is, which is cut. I'm sorry?
A pitcher.
Thank you. A pitcher, which is divided in few sections. And I bought that because I will tell you, I was born in Tunisia, where we have our own culture and our own philosophy. And my father was always telling us, you need to save a pear for when you are thirsty. You need to save a pear for when you are thirsty. And I said, Dad, you eat a pear. It's not thirsty, but he said, a pear has a lot of juice. And at the same time, has something that you can eat. That means, how do we react ourselves? How do we react to our own situation? How do we react to the situation of others? And I will tell you, from the moment I am devastated, I am horrified, I am more than sad, I am thinking about the mothers of the world, the Palestinian mothers who are losing their children, and their children who are losing their mothers. And we need to have all of them released. I let you read. And to finish with music.
Go.
Hi, my name is Marco, and this is my mom, Rebecca. We're gonna play Adikfa, and my mom's gonna sing, and I'm gonna play.
Kolon baleva penima nefesh Yehudi omiya ulefate mizrach dadima ayin letzion tzovia
Okay, this is a mother and a child. And you know, talking about trauma, how an image like that can bring love. Marco is here, 9 years old. And when he addressed the beginning of his video, he says, it's not very clear, but he says, hi, Meme, which is grandma. This is Marco, and this is my mother, Rebecca. That means he's the one who is reintroducing me to my daughter, reintroducing me to the future of them, and to the concept of from generation to generation.
Go.
Voila. And I wanted to recognize all of us and say a very dear thank you to Jeffrey. But Jeffrey, we have a long way to go. I have a long way to go. I don't know what I'm doing.
You know, it's terrific to have you present to us. I want to give the audience a chance, if there are any questions, to bring them forward, and then we're going to conclude with another presentation from Ava, who is terrific as well. So Is there any questions for Jackie? And remember, Jackie will return with her film, We Are the Tree of Life, in full stream on January 10th at noon.
Can I?
So.
I would like to say two things very, very fast. The USC Shoah Foundation, under Steven Spielberg and his own action, has decided to interview the survivors of the hostage situation in Israel. And I think we need to applaud them for that. It's beautiful. I would like also to say one little story, if you give me, but if there is no question. Okay, very short. And it's to bring a little bit of joy and smile to all of you. We talk about educating children. I have been an educator for 63 years in many fields. But one day, I am home. It's Happy Mother's Day. And take my phone, and I see that my oldest daughter sent me a bouquet of flowers, sent me some flowers. As on my phone, a little bouquet, and she writes, "Happy birthday, Mom." I said, is that a way to communicate with a mother? That means I call her and I say, the phone rings, she answers, she say, "Mom?" I say, "Yes." I say, "How are you, Bronya?" "Oh, hold on, somebody is at the door." It's a very important story, I think. Somebody is at the door. She say, "Don't open the door, nobody comes to you." I say, "Stay on the phone, like that I feel safe." 20 seconds later, I come back and I say, "Bronya, thank you for the flowers." She says, "Which flowers?" I say, "I have a bouquet of flowers in my hand, and they send me a big box." She say, "A bouquet of..." She say, "Oh, Mom, don't start. I didn't send you flowers." I say, "I know, ma chérie, but my love, but you don't send a little bouquet on the phone, on your messages to your mom. Bye, I love you." From 3 years ago, when this situation happened, I received my bouquet of flowers for my birthday and for Happy Mother's Day. What I'm saying here is, Mark, I totally agree with you. And Ruth, I agree with you. But what we have to do is to understand their words of today. You know, she doesn't call me every day, but I am sure that she sent 200 messages to any of her relationship or working relationship. That means, how do we combine as educator the basis of what is the education that we want to teach with what they receive? And this is the difficulty. I appreciate you telling me that, Jeffrey.
All right.
It was just a little bit bigger because I am from Tunisia. Thank you, guys.
You introduce my friend from Minneapolis,
Thank you.
Minnesota, and Eva is going to talk about her mom and her mom's terrific baking and how she uses baking to cope with her trauma. So go ahead, you take the screen, and you'll be sharing when you are ready to share.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I will speak for a little bit less than 10 minutes, and then I will share a few images with you. Hello, everybody. So my mother, Elena, or Itza as friends and family called her, she was born in Austria-Hungary. And when the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed, that region became the first Czechoslovak Republic. Itza's father, my grandfather, was a textile merchant, and they had a comfortable life. And they had domestic help. But one day, when my mother, Itza, came home from school, her mother said to her, "I want you to learn how to cook and how to bake. You never know when there will be a need for you to know it." So my mother stood alongside the maid and began to cook and bake. And she learned how to bake bread and challah and cakes, all kinds of, even yeast cakes, torts, cookies. And she was very good at baking and enjoyed doing it. Then the war broke out. My mother and her little sister, a 16 years old sister, and their parents, they were all put on cattle trains and transported to Auschwitz. Their parents, my grandparents, were immediately sent to the gas chambers. So the day they arrived, they were murdered. In Auschwitz, food was scarce, and when they were allowed to go back into the barracks in the evening, these women huddled together and talked about food. Excuse me. Sorry. So they talked about food and they shared recipes with each other. A few weeks being in Auschwitz, they were put again on cattle trains and transported. 1,000 Hungarian women were transported to Germany, to a munition factory called in the town of Hesse-Schlichtenau. My parents were my mother lived in Czechoslovakia, but during the war, that region became Hungary. So she was together with Hungarian women, and my parents were Hungarian language was my first language. So Hesse-Schlichtenau munition factory in Germany was a subcamp of Buchenwald concentration camp. And my mother was fluent in German, and the Nazis selected her to be a translator and messenger. And if there was no messages to take throughout the vast region area of this munition factory, then they said to her, you should clean the factory. One day, as my mother was cleaning the factory, she saw a stack of paper in the wastebasket. When nobody looked, she pilfered the paper. This paper was German. It was German paper. On one side, it had the name of the munition that was manufactured in Hesse-Schlichtenau munition factory, like bombs and grenades and mines. The other side was blank, and it was suitable for writing. And because they continued to be so hungry, the rations were just limited, barely kept them alive. Again, when they got back after the 12-hour shift in the factory, they would huddle together and they would talk about food. And my mother began to write. And every day she wrote a few recipes that the women shared with her. Writing recipes was a form of indirect resistance. This was her way to defy the Nazis. They took away so much from them. And she wrote hundreds of recipes. Then it was spring of 1945, the Allies were approaching, and Hesse-Schlichtenau munition factory was evacuated. They took the women on a death march. But as the Allies were getting closer and closer, the Nazis, the Nazi guards, were worried about their own lives, and they began to abandon the transport. And 2 weeks later, after 2 weeks of the death march, the women found themselves alone. 1 or 2 days later, they were liberated by Americans. When they found themselves alone, they started to walk in little groups, and then one day they saw an American jeep and they were liberated. The two sisters returned home to Czechoslovakia, to their home, empty house. Couple years later, my parents met. They got married and they had me, an only child. And the recipes arrived to Czechoslovakia with my mother intact. My mother loved to bake, and she baked every Sunday. She kept the recipes inside a large tin box that originally had cookies in them. And I have so many fond memories. I remember how every Sunday she would take out the box the tin box, and she would remove a handful of recipes and gently spread them on the table. She was so gentle and so careful with them. And then she looked through the recipes very quietly, trying to decide which one to bake on that day. And often I saw a faraway look on her face, and I could tell that she was back with those women. And sometimes she would tell me a story about the woman whose name was written on the recipe. One of my fondest memories is when my mother made strudel, a flaky pastry dough. I may have been about 5 or 6 years old, and I remember standing in the kitchen away from my mother's way, out of her way, and observing her. She cleared off a round table in the kitchen. She covered it with white damask tablecloths. First, she sprinkled flour on the tablecloths, and then she placed the dough, a piece of dough, maybe 12 by 8 inches dough on the middle of the table. And she began to very patiently walk around and around the table, stretching the dough very gently, lifting it up and putting her hands underneath while slightly pulling the dough. And I was fascinated to see that in a very short time, the dough was paper thin and see-through and was covering the entire large round table and was hanging down all around the edges, just like the tablecloths did. She prepared a variety of fillings ahead of time. And when the dough was all stretched out, she put the filling, rolled up the dough, baked the strudel until it was medium brown and cooled it, let it cool, and then sliced it, placed it on a very nice crystal platter, and with the help of a small sieve, she sprinkled powdered sugar on top. My father and I could hardly wait to have a piece of fresh, delicious, crispy strudel, deciding which one to try first. My favorite was the poppy seed. I also liked the walnut filling. My father's favorite was the apple strudel, and also he liked the strudel with sour cherries. And I'm not sure if it was sour cherries or sweet cherries, but he liked that one too. And we both liked the farmer cheese with filling that had raisins in it. And we had to try that one too. And my mother just watched us with a smile on her face, so happy to see how much we enjoyed it. I will always remember my mother's face, how relaxed and calm she was when she was baking. She took pride in the end result, but most importantly, she was happy in seeing the faces of her family and friends, how much they enjoyed what she made. It was very gratifying for her to see it. The recipes that my mother wrote during the Holocaust were very precious to her. They remained with her throughout her entire life. And years later, when my parents emigrated from Czechoslovakia to the United States, the recipes came to the United States. And every Friday evening, we welcomed Shabbat, 3 generations together in our house. And we enjoyed my mother's challah and the pastries that she made every week. She was very talented, and her breads and torts and cookies and cakes, everything was exceptional. Baking is meditative. It helped my mother, and it helps others as well as me to concentrate on what the person is doing. It was very calming to my mother, and it was healing. Also, the repetitive part of baking when you are shaping, decorating, cutting, or slicing is also very relaxing. Many health professionals recommend baking to ease stress, anxiety, depression, and other negative emotions. Both my parents experienced horrific events, but they were strong and resilient, and they found coping skills that were helpful to them. The hundreds of recipes now reside in the United States Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And I would like to share just a few images with you of my parents. So these are my parents. This is 1947 when they first met, and this is on their honeymoon, and then a few years later. And these are the papers that my mother pilfered, and she wrote the recipes on the other side, like this is almond pudding given to her by Pani. And some of there are mines, some of there are grenades, some of these are SD-50 was a bomb. This is Hesse-Lichtenau entry ticket for the high Nazi officials to enter, and she wrote chestnut puree and all kinds of wonderful pastries. This is another bomb. And here is my mother already in the United States, my mother and I. This is a bar mitzvah of our middle child, our son Mark, and everything you see, all the little cookies and the torts was made by my mother, the entire sweet table. My mother at age 90, and these are my grandchildren. We are blessed with 6 grandkids, and they continue baking with me, every one of them. And in my book, I wrote a story about my parents. And in my book titled Hidden Recipes, I did give out, it's a memoir, but I gave out 6 recipes that I translated from Hungarian to English. And this is the book, Hidden Recipes. So, thank you.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I always say that when I listen to Ava and close my eyes, I hear my mom. My mom was from Czechoslovakia, different town than Ava's mom was. They both went into Auschwitz in 1944. It's very possible that they were in Auschwitz at the same time. And there is such a deep connection, though we have never met, only on Zoom. So it's just beautiful. And I want to open up if there's any questions from the audience for Ava, and I will come back and I have a question for you, Ava, as well.
Thank you.
I just want to say my mouth is watering and I love listening to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much. I'm sure you grew up with strudels as well.
Yes. It brings back very wonderful memories, and food is important, but your mother was a real blessing.
And we celebrate Hanukkah tonight, and I'm sure each of you are working diligently to put a nice spread on the table and to bring your grandchildren and children together and to say the Hanukkah blessings and to light the candles. So it's especially important. Jackie, you wanted to say something.
Your grandchildren look very young. Have you shared or presented the full story, and how far with them about your mom?
Yes, our grandchildren are age 5 to 15.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So the 2 girls, the oldest one just turned 15 yesterday, the oldest granddaughter, and the youngest. Thank you. Thank you. The youngest one is 5 years old, also a granddaughter, and 4 boys in the middle. The 15-year-old Isabel, ever since I started to write in 2018, she always, every time she came over for a sleepover, she always wanted to hear stories. So I shared with her stories. And she said to me, Grandma, when you publish the book, can I have my own copy? And I said, yes. So she always was very interested. She has her own copy of the book. The next one, our grandson, who is now 14 years old, he did not read the book yet. I gave him a copy, but he somehow is not yet ready to read it. And every one of them loves to bake with me, from challah to Hamantaschen to any of the pastries that I make. They love to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
I wanted to ask if you can move your screen so that the wall behind you is more, yep. If everyone will see the screen, there is a Torah.
Something fell down. Oh, it's my telephone. Sorry, it's my phone. Okay. Can you
Yeah,
see?
yeah.
I can see it, and I would love for you to share a little brief story about how you've acquired this Torah. It is quite remarkable, and we want to record it forever. So tell us how you acquired this Torah.
So, as I mentioned, we are from Czechoslovakia. My mother is from a town called Plešivec. There was a Jewish community, there was a synagogue, but after the war, when my mother and my aunt, her sister, came back, they were the only Jewish people who returned because many of them were murdered. They were all sent to Auschwitz. So many of them were murdered, and those who survived didn't want to come back. That there was a ghetto, they had very bad memories of the townspeople. So my mother, when she got married, my father my mother was a kindergarten teacher before the war, but when she got married, my parents opened a store, a textile business, and which was taken away by the communists later on. But one day, an older woman walks in with a bundle in her arms, walks into the store. And she came to my mother. This was an older Catholic lady. And she said to my mother, I rescued this during the war, and I know that this is very sacred to the Jews. So now I want to give it back to you. And my mother had no idea what it was. And it was something, the bundle was wrapped up. And when she uncovered it, there was a Torah scroll rolled up. And she told my mother that when the Jews were taken away, the synagogue was ransacked. Everything was thrown out on the street. And she said when nobody looked, she picked up the scrolls, rolled them up, covered them up, and she hid them. So my mother asked, and where did you hide it? And she said, I hid it under the straw in the pigsty because I thought nobody will discover it there. And my mother was very grateful, very, very touched by this. And she gave a few meters of fabric as a gift to this old Catholic lady. And the Torah scrolls, she wrapped it also in a damask. Damask is so popular in Europe. She wrapped it into a damask tablecloth, and she put it into the closet. And this Torah scroll stayed with my parents their entire life. They brought them out again, just like the recipes. From Czechoslovakia, they came to United States. And they were already in their 90s, in their late 90s, when my father said to me, why don't you take it to your home? So I brought it home. And one day we opened the dining table. We invited a friend who is very knowledgeable. We opened the dining table large and we unrolled it. And to our surprised there were six. I call them six fragments, but each fragment was a few feet long, so large fragments. And this friend, who is very educated in these things, he said it looks that these are from three separate Torahs, but each one incomplete. So after my parents passed away, I also kept it in the same damask tablecloth in my closet. But after they passed away, we decided that we have to do something with it. And we had it professionally mounted, just as you see. And we have 3 children, and each one received one Torah with a little story on the bottom that tells the story of the Torah. And so it's in their home. It is in memory of their grandparents and great-grandparents. And for me to have it, it's so meaningful because I don't have anything from my grandparents. And this is the connection to my grandparents, whom I never met. So it's very, very precious.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jackie, quickly.
Yes, has it been dated? Do we know how old it is or no?
No, we don't know, unfortunately. But surprisingly, even though it was on the street, thrown out on the street, we were told that it's in very good condition.
Okay, so I want to end this program. I want to thank all of you for your participation and support. Each of your presentations were unique, special, and oh my goodness, I loved every one of them. I want to remind you all that we have another program in December on the 17th, which is our Sunday program with June Hirsch, who has just written a new book of survivor recipes. You may want to find that very interesting. Ava also, and she's she's a multiple book author, and has just launched this book called Food, Hope, and Resilience. So that's on December 17th at 1 o'clock on Sunday, 10 o'clock on the Pacific time. And to end the program with another surprise, I knew someone was here who's always been a huge supporter and has had some injuries recently, and she's starting to look at me and say, I don't know what he's going to do now, but I can see her waving her hand there. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to do a little trick. I'm going to put the music on. I'm going to make, it's like, name that tune, okay? Zola. So I want you to unmute yourself so you're ready to talk to me. And then I'm going to play a little bit of the few notes of the tune, and then I want you to come back and tell us a little bit about that song. And then I'm going to play as an exit the whole rest of the music. And Zola is an international published musicalist and vocalist. She's going to be singing with us in January. On January, I think, 17th for the next trauma program. I think you've signed up for this. Am I right? Okay.
I can't remember which date. It's in the calendar.
All right. I think it's next month. So here we go. I'm coming right back. So tell us a little bit about that song.
I guess you've picked Blue Rain.
Right.
Why are you picking such a depressing song? We need uplifting.
I love it.
Blue Rain is it's actually is a favorite of many other people, strangers and family and friends on the album. It is actually a collaboration of myself. I belonged to a Boston songwriting organization, and we'd get together, and the they used to call me the Princess of Light because I was very happy and bubbly and wrote love songs. And there was this man, John Seif, who always wrote these dark, very dark lyrics. So we decided for some unknown reason to get together and collaborate on a song. And I said to him, I have this idea. I want to talk about rain and that you're feeling blue in the rain and it's blue rain. And I gave him some little phrases where I said, it's misty and I'm sad and it's midnight and I don't know how to say this. And he just came out with magical lyrics. Sad old midnight, which is like I could have never come up with. And so we made this collaboration where he wrote 50% of the lyrics, but the really good lines are his. Here it goes.
Yeah.
Rain on my window falls from out of the dark. Tears on my pillow, I cry them straight from my heart. And somewhere in the dark, I hear the whisper of your name in the blue, blue rain. Sad old midnight in a lazy mist was the last time you held me, was the last time we kissed. And somewhere in the mist I hear the whisper of your name in the blue, blue rain. I thought all this rain would drown the old flame. Strange how it just keeps on burning. How the vision of you keeps returning in the blue rain, the blue rain, blue rain. Morning light melts the dream away, leaving long, lonely hours to linger through the day. But somewhere far away, a whisper still remains, calling your name, calling the night to fall again, bringing you back to me in the blue, blue rain. Blue rain, blue rain, whispering your name. Blue, blue rain, blue rain, blue rain, blue rain.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you, Zola, to end the program. Thank you all for being here. And again, we'll see you on December 17th, hopefully. Sign up the RSVP so you save a seat. Deborah, nice to see you. Zola, take your, now you can go to bed. I know it's late. So, okay, see you later, everyone. Bye-bye now. Sammy, nice seeing you too.